2003, Oscar Wilde's Commonplace notebook went under the hammer at London's prestigious auction for astonishing £58,000. Just imagine 304 pages of notebooks that tell us about the mind of one of the greatest writers in history, about which books influenced him, what quotes he copied down from great literature, but also about ideas from philosophy which influenced his writing and his vision in general. But what makes Oscar Wilde's notebooks unique is that he shows us that a commonplace notebook is not simply a place where you collect facts and quotes, but it's a place where you reflect upon them, where you make that knowledge your own, where you actually think about the ideas that resonated with you. So in this video, I would like to share with you 3 ways how you can imitate Oscar Wilde and the way he kept his own commonplace notebook. Many people think that what makes a great commonplace notebook is a way you organize it, how well you organize it, how easily you can find every fact, every quote or idea when you need it. While organization is very important, and I have a separate video where I go into detail on how you can organize your commonplace notebook, you can find it in one of the corners and in the description, I believe still that the secret to a great commonplace notebook lies not in the way you organize it, but the way you approach it and in your mindset. Because when we look at Wilde's notebooks, we don't see any sophisticated ways of organization or anything like that. For Wilde, the purpose of Commonplace Notebook was not simply hoarding facts or beautiful quotes. It was a space for reflection. I don't have a lot of things common with Oscar Wilde. One of them is that I'm not Irish, but one thing that I really did intuitively before I encountered Oscar Wilde's Commonplace Notebooks is that I don't simply add a quote and then forget about it and hope to find it one day when I need it. Instead, when I add a quote, I also comment on it. I write what I think about it. I ask myself, why did this quote resonate with me? Why I decided to add it in the first place? This is what Oscar Wilde did, and he did this because in this way you make the knowledge your own. You make it a part of your own vision. Many people criticized Wilde because he used certain ideas that people thought that he borrowed. In reality, I think Oscar Wilde made those ideas that he read in books so much part of himself that he couldn't distinguish what ideas are his own and what ideas he actually borrowed. What makes Oscar Wilde's Commonplace Notebook unique is that he teaches us, he shows us how we can make each piece of knowledge our own. He doesn't just simply copy down quotes. He rephrases them, he paraphrases them, and then writes comments about it. So the first step of how you and I can keep a commonplace notebook the way Oscar Wilde did is by phrasing it in our own way, because many authors, including Wilde, sound slightly archaic to our world, to our 21st century. This is one of the reasons why Oscar Wilde paraphrases each quote, because many authors that he reads come from hundreds or sometimes 1,000 years before. He loved classical literature, he loved medieval literature, he really explored all of the types of ideas, and he knew that he needs to phrase those ideas in a language that is more modern, that is better suited to his own time. So first thing, don't copy down each quote. Instead, phrase it better, phrase it in your own way. And of course, after you rephrased and paraphrased a quote, try writing down your thoughts about it. Why did you decide to include this quote in your commonplace notebook? What was it that exactly attracted your attention and your thoughts? Write down, what do you think about this quote? It doesn't have to be pages or even paragraphs. It can be in a couple of sentences, as long as it will give you a clarity in which direction your intellectual curiosity is headed towards. The second thing that makes Oscar Wilde's notebooks so unique and something that you and I can learn from him, he not only writes comments on each quote, and he not only even rephrases them, he also criticizes them. He asks himself, when is this particular idea not applicable? Because as it is in nature, one tree can grow on European continent but not grow in Asia because simply environments are different. It is similar with the ideas. One idea can be applicable in one life circumstance but not be applicable in another. So it is important to criticize each idea and each quote that you are including in your Commonplace notebook. But what is more important is not criticism in itself. It's not finding that the author was wrong, but instead seeing where are the gaps in your own knowledge, where you can apply this knowledge. And of course, as I said, Oscar Wilde didn't do anything superfluous in his notebooks. Each idea that he rephrased, commented, and then he criticized, he also kind of gave us hints of why he decided to think about this particular thought. With each page, you can see how he applied those ideas in his stories, in his essays, in his plays. After rephrasing and paraphrasing things, and after commenting and criticizing, ask yourself, where and in which field of your life, in which creative pursuit, this piece of knowledge will be applicable. Because once again, I'm going to repeat in this video several times, a simple accumulation of even great knowledge is completely useless. There is so much knowledge in the world. There are so many fields of study that one lifetime is not enough. And you have to always ask yourself where and how I can practically apply certain ideas and thoughts that I'm constantly exploring. Third thing that I've learned from Oscar Wilde, but also from Leo Tolstoy, is that each wisdom that we encounter needs to be somehow applied to the real world. But sometimes we don't have those opportunities to use a certain piece of wisdom practically in life. In order to still remember and integrate that piece of wisdom into ourselves, one of the things that both Wilde and Tolstoy used to do were to write short stories revolving around those pieces of wisdom that fascinated them, that triggered their curiosity. I told you in my previous video about Leo Tolstoy's book called A Calendar of Wisdom that Tolstoy used to write what he called Sunday reading stories, because Tolstoy used to keep a commonplace notebook where he added quotes on all sorts of philosophical, religious ideas. And then, in order to make them his own, he used to write those Sunday reading stories in which he explored each piece of wisdom through characters that he invented. And each story was just a couple of pages long. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an English translation of those stories. I read it in Russian, but I would really recommend you to do something similar, because Wilde integrated all the pieces of wisdom, all the ideas into his own stories. After all, such stories such as The Portrait of Dorian Gray or his essay on the importance of being earnest didn't come out of vacuum. It is something that Wilde explored in his writings for a very long time. That's how they were born. I would like to say that a link to Oscar Wilde's Commonplace notebooks will be included down in the description. It is free of access, so you can access it for free, absolutely without paying a penny. The problem is that the hard copy of Commonplace notebooks of Oscar Wilde cost over £100. Oscar Wilde's notebooks are available for free online, and I'll leave a link in the description if you would like to check them out. I would really recommend you to have a look and borrow some of the ideas and see how the tips that I described in this video were actually put in practice. I hope this all was helpful and interesting and useful to you. Let me know what you think down in the comments. One small announcement that I'm working on a page website where I'm going to collect all the thoughts and ideas and tips on how you can keep a journal, a commonplace notebook, and a diary. I want this place on the internet to be the best place where you can come and get advice on journaling and when it comes to commonplace notebooks. This project is underway. You can follow it if you follow me on Instagram, subscribe to this channel and my newsletter. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye everybody.